They say grief reveals people's true colors. I found that out the night I buried my grandparents. The air was still heavy with the smell of funeral flowers when my family's whispers turned into demands. We had barely left the cemetery when their lawyer, Mr. Harrison, read the will aloud and the room fell silent. And to our granddaughter, Claire Williams, we leave the entirety of our estate, valued at $26 million. The weight of his words hit me like a storm. 26 million. Everything. The house. The businesses. The land. Me, the quiet, overlooked granddaughter, was the sole heir. I didn't even have time to breathe before the storm broke loose. You don't deserve it. You're too young to handle that kind of money. That estate belongs to the family, not just you. But I refused. I shook my head, my voice trembling but firm. No. They left it to me. And I'm not giving it up. The venom in their eyes told me I had just declared war. That night, they made good on their threat, throwing me out of the only home I had ever known. With nothing but a bag of clothes, I drove through the dark, winding road that led to my grandparents' mansion. Alone. Afraid. But determined. I thought moving into their house would give me peace. Instead, it placed me right in the center of a battle I never asked for. Because the very next day, my family came pounding on the front gates, ready to drag me out. But when they saw who was standing beside me, their faces drained of color. They weren't just shocked. They were terrified. I should have been mourning. Instead, I sat in a cold leather chair at Mr. Harrison's office, my hands clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles burned. The room was silent except for the steady tick of the grandfather clock in the corner. Everyone was there, my mother, uncles, cousins, all waiting with fake patience, their eyes flicking between the lawyer's papers and me. They hadn't looked at me once during the funeral, but now, I could feel them studying me like vultures circling prey. Your grandparents loved you very much, Claire, Mr. Harrison said gently, before lowering his glasses to read the will. His voice was calm, but each word he spoke cracked open a fault line that split my family apart. By the time he finished, the air was so tense it felt like the walls themselves were suffocating us. Uncle Richard was the first to explode. This is ridiculous. She's 19. What does she know about managing an estate? Harrison, there must be a mistake. There's no mistake, Mr. Harrison replied firmly. Your parents' wishes were clear. That was when my mother turned to me, her expression a mask of cold fury. Claire, hand it over. You don't understand what you're doing. That money belongs to the family. The family. As if I wasn't part of it. As if my grandparents hadn't made their choice with crystal clarity. I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered, "No. I won't." The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. In that moment, I knew they weren't just angry. They were dangerous. And by midnight, they proved it. The sound of my refusal still hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. "No. I won't." My mother blinked, as though she hadn't heard me correctly. Her lips parted, then closed, then parted again, like a snake testing the air. Uncle Richard's face turned red, his fists clenching against the arms of his chair. My cousins whispered furiously to one another, their eyes darting toward me with thinly veiled contempt. "You selfish child," Aunt Margaret hissed, leaning forward, her perfume heavy enough to choke me. "Your grandparents built this empire for the family. Not for some little girl who can't even balance her own checkbook." My stomach knotted, but I forced myself to lift my chin. My voice wavered, but it didn't break. They made their choice. It's mine. And I'm not giving it up. For a moment, The room was silent except for the steady tick-tock of the grandfather clock. Then my mother's chair screeched back as she stood. Her smile was ice. Fine. If that's how you want it, don't expect to stay under my roof another night. The venom in her tone made my heart drop. What? You heard me, she snapped. If you're too grown to share with your family, then you're too grown to live with us. Get out. I stared at her, the woman who had given birth to me, the woman I thought would at least show some mercy. But her eyes were steel. There was no love in them, only greed. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Perhaps this discussion could continue tomorrow. Emotions are high. But Uncle Richard cut him off. No. She made her choice. Tonight, she learns what it means to stand on her own. I sat frozen, my legs trembling. Then my cousin Brandon grabbed my bag, the one I had set by the chair earlier, and hurled it at my feet. Here. You'll need this. His smirk was cruel, his eyes burning with a satisfaction that made me sick. My mother's voice cracked like a whip. Out. Now. I picked up the bag with shaking hands, forcing myself not to let them see me cry. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the office, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Outside, the air was cool, sharp against my burning cheeks. My car was parked at the curb, my grandfather's old sedan he had given me before he died. I slid into the driver's seat, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I looked back once, through the glass doors of the building. They were all standing there, watching me, smiling. Not one of them came after me. Not one of them softened. That was when I realized I wasn't just disowned. I was at war. With nowhere else to go, I turned the car onto the winding road that led to my grandparents' mansion. It was an estate I'd only visited during holidays, a place that always felt too grand, too distant for me. But now, it was mine. The headlights carved through the dark as I drove, the silence in the car pressing in on me. By the time the iron gates loomed into view, my chest felt tight with both fear and determination. I pressed the code my grandfather had once made me memorize as a child, never knowing why he insisted I remember it, and the gates creaked open, slow and heavy, like they hadn't been touched in years. The mansion rose before me, vast and shadowed, its windows like watchful eyes. The house wasn't welcoming. It was waiting. As I stepped inside, dragging my small bag behind me, the air smelled faintly of old wood and lavender, my grandmother's favorite scent. My footsteps echoed against marble floors, reminding me just how alone I was. I told myself I was safe. That the house would protect me. That my grandparents had left it to me for a reason. But in the silence of that cavernous house, one thought kept circling in my mind. What if my family doesn't stop at kicking me out? And for the first time, I wasn't sure if the inheritance was a gift or a curse. The heavy doors of the mansion groaned shut behind me, their echo rolling down the marble hall like thunder. I stood still for a moment, clutching my bag to my chest, my breath clouding faintly in the chilly air. The silence was unsettling. No humming appliances. No footsteps. Just the faint tick of a grandfather clock somewhere deep within the house. I forced myself to move forward, my shoes clicking against polished stone floors. The chandelier above, covered in a fine layer of dust, glittered weakly under the glow of my phone's flashlight. I'd forgotten how massive this place was. My grandparents had always hosted Christmas dinners here, but I'd only ever seen the main dining room and the parlor. Now, wandering alone, the house felt like a labyrinth. Each door I passed seemed to breathe secrets, each hallway stretching longer than it should. I told myself I was imagining things. That the prickle on the back of my neck was just nerves. But the deeper I went, the stronger it grew. The mansion wasn't empty. It was watching me. I found the master bedroom upstairs, the one that had belonged to my grandparents. The bed was perfectly made, the quilt folded with military precision. On the nightstand sat a photograph of them, smiling at me from another lifetime. My chest tightened. I missed them so much it hurt. Dragging my bag to the corner, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. No messages. No calls. My family hadn't reached out, not even to fake concern. A knot of dread formed in my stomach. They wouldn't let this go. Not $26 million. I locked the doors and pulled the curtains shut. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling I wasn't alone. Shadows seemed to shift along the walls. The old pipes groaned in the silence. At one point, I swore I heard footsteps echoing in the hall outside my room, slow, deliberate. My breath caught. I held still, straining my ears. 1 step. 2 steps. Then nothing. I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles ached. Should I call someone? But who? The police. And tell them what? That my inheritance might be making me paranoid. Hours later, exhaustion pulled me under. But even in sleep, I wasn't free. I dreamed of my grandparents standing at the foot of the bed, their faces grave. My grandmother whispered, "Trust no one, Claire. Not even blood." I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart hammering against my ribs. And that was when I heard it. A car engine outside. I rushed to the window, peeking through the curtains. Headlights cut through the fog, moving up the long driveway. A dark SUV. Then another. Then a third. My blood ran cold. They had come. By the time the pounding started at the front gates, the sun was barely peeking over the horizon. The sound echoed like gunshots through the estate. Claire. It was my uncle's voice, booming with rage. "Open this gate right now." I stumbled back from the window, my heart in my throat. They weren't here to talk. They were here to take everything. Another voice joined, my mother's. "This isn't yours, Claire. You can't hide in there like a thief." I wanted to scream back, to tell them I wasn't the thief, that I hadn't stolen anything. But the words tangled in my throat. The gates rattled as they shoved against them. My family wasn't just angry. They were desperate. I was about to reach for my phone when a sound behind me made me freeze. Footsteps. Inside the house. Slow. Heavy. Coming closer. I spun, my chest tightening, and then I saw him. Standing in the shadows of the hall, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from stone and eyes that burned with quiet authority. Not a stranger. Not an intruder. Someone I knew. Someone my family never expected to see again. When my family finally caught sight of him standing beside me at the mansion doors, their bravado shattered. Their voices faltered. Their faces drained of color. Because the man at my side wasn't just an ally. He was the one person they had spent years trying to erase from our lives. And now he was back. The pounding at the gates grew louder, more desperate, but I could barely hear it over the sound of my own heartbeat. He stood there tall, broad, dressed in a black coat that seemed to swallow the dim light of the hall. His presence filled the space, commanding, unshakable. For a second, I couldn't breathe. "Why, my voice broke, my lips trembling. He stepped forward, his boots echoing against the marble, until he stood just a few feet away. His eyes, sharp, gray, the kind that saw straight through you, locked on mine. "You're safe now, Claire," he said, his voice deep, steady, and familiar in a way that made my knees weak. Safe. The word felt foreign. No one had told me that in years. I swallowed hard. But oh how? I thought you were. Before I could finish, the gates rattled violently. My family's shouts pierced the morning air. Claire, don't you dare lock us out. You're going to regret this. Open these gates or we'll break them down. My stomach turned. They sounded less like family and more like a mob. The man's gaze flicked toward the noise, then back to me. Let them scream. They won't touch you. Not while I'm here. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. The last time I saw him, I was a little girl clutching my grandmother's hand, watching as he was dragged away from this very house. I'd overheard whispers back then. Betrayal, prison, scandal. My family had sworn his name would never be spoken again. But here he was. Alive. Standing beside me. And when my family finally forced the gates open, storming toward the house, they stopped dead in their tracks the moment they saw him. Uncle Richard's face drained of color. Aunt Margaret staggered back, clutching her chest. My mother's lips trembled as though she'd seen a ghost. It can't be, she whispered, her voice cracking. You're supposed to be gone. You're supposed to be. The man stepped forward, his expression cold, unreadable. You buried me once, he said calmly. But I'm not the kind of man who stays buried. The silence that followed was suffocating. My family's bravado crumbled, their fury dissolving into something far worse, fear. I looked between them, my head spinning. Who was this man to them? To me. Why were they so terrified? But one thing was clear, whatever secrets they tried to hide, whatever lies they'd built around his absence, they were about to collapse. And somehow, I was standing right at the center of it all. The tension outside the mansion was electric. My family, frozen mid-step, glaring at the man beside me as though looking at death itself. My mother was the first to recover, though her voice cracked. Claire, get away from him. You don't know who you're standing with. The man's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. His voice cut through the air, calm but lethal. Tell her the truth, Evelyn. My mother's eyes flickered, panic flashing across her face. There is no truth. He's dangerous, Claire. A criminal. He doesn't belong here. But something in her tone was off. A tremor. A lie. I clenched my fists, my fear slowly twisting into anger. Then why are you all so afraid of him? If he's nothing but a criminal, why do you look like you've seen a ghost? They didn't answer. None of them could. The man turned to me then, his gaze steady. Your grandparents trusted me, Claire. They made me promise to protect you, even if it meant coming back when it was least expected. His words hit me like a storm. A protector. For me. I don't understand, I whispered. You will, he said, his eyes darkening. But first, your family has to answer for what they did. To me. To your grandparents. And to you. The mansion's front steps became a battlefield. My family stood outside the gates, faces pale, eyes wide, frozen in disbelief. Beside me, the man radiated calm danger, like a storm waiting to strike. Claire, my mother's voice wavered, please, step away from him. Her words were coated with urgency, but it wasn't concern I heard. It was fear. The man didn't flinch. His eyes, sharp, cold, never left her. Tell her the truth, Evelyn. Tell her why you all wanted me gone. Uncle Richard spat on the ground. You have no right to be here. You lost everything years ago. Lost. The man's voice was low, lethal. No. It was stolen. By all of you. My pulse thundered in my ears. Stolen? What was he talking about? I stepped forward, my voice trembling but strong. Someone tell me what's going on. Right now. But instead of answering me, my family argued with each other, their whispers harsh, frantic. She can't know. Keep your mouth shut, Richard. If she finds out. I snapped. If I find out what? The man placed a hand gently on my shoulder, steadying me. They won't tell you. Because the truth will ruin them. That's why they erased me. That's why they lied to you all these years. My throat tightened. My mind raced back to childhood, the silences when I asked questions, the sudden subject changes when his name came up, the warning looks. I had thought it was just family drama. But now, my mother's eyes burned into me, desperate. Claire, listen to me. He's manipulating you. Your grandparents trusted me more than anyone, the man cut in, his voice sharp as a blade. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. My family's faces twisted, guilt, rage, terror, all battling at once. And suddenly, I realized something chilling. Whoever this man was, my family feared him not because he was dangerous, but because he knew the truth. The air outside felt charged, as if the mansion itself was holding its breath. I turned to the man, my chest tight. Who are you? He looked at me for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his words shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. My name, he said, his voice steady, is Jonathan Williams. Your grandparents' firstborn son. Your uncle. The rightful heir. My knees nearly buckled. Uncle. That's impossible. They said. They said I was dead, he finished for me, his jaw tightening. But I wasn't. They framed me. Cast me out. And when I refused to play along with their corruption, they made sure I disappeared. I staggered back, the weight of his words pressing down on me. My uncle. Alive. Betrayed. Hidden. My mother's scream pierced the air. Lies. He's nothing but a thief. He destroyed this family. Jonathan's eyes locked on hers, icy and unblinking. No, Evelyn. I didn't destroy it. You did. All of you. And now, Claire will finally learn why her grandparents left everything to her and not to any of you. The ground beneath me seemed to shift. $26 million. An inheritance I thought was simply a gift of love. But now, it felt more like a weapon, one my grandparents had left in my hands to finish what they couldn't. My family wasn't just angry because I got everything. They were terrified because Jonathan was back. And I was caught in the middle of a war that had been simmering for decades. The gates clanged shut again, locking my family out. Their shouts still echoed faintly across the estate, but they didn't dare come closer. Not with Jonathan standing beside me. The silence that followed was almost worse. Jonathan moved with calm authority, as though he'd never left this house. He walked through the halls slowly, like a soldier inspecting old battlegrounds. His fingers brushed across the dusty furniture, the faded wallpaper, the photographs that still hung in gilded frames. I followed him, torn between fear and desperate curiosity. My mind was spinning. This was my uncle. A man I had been told never existed. Or rather, that he had died before I was born. Why did they lie to me? My voice was small, broken, echoing down the hall. Jonathan stopped at the base of the staircase. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then his grey eyes turned toward me, hard with memory. Because the truth, he said quietly, would have destroyed everything they built. And your grandparents, they couldn't risk your innocence being poisoned by it. I swallowed, goosebumps prickling my arms. What truth? Before he could answer, a door upstairs slammed shut. We both froze. The sound was sharp, deliberate, not the creak of an old house, but the slam of someone there. My chest tightened. We're alone, right? Jonathan's expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker of alertness in his eyes. Stay behind me. We climbed the stairs slowly, each step groaning beneath our weight. At the end of the hall, the master bedroom door, my grandparents' room, the one I had slept in, was shut tight. Jonathan pushed it open. Empty. The bed was neatly made, the curtains still drawn, but the air was different. Heavy. Cold. I shivered. I heard it. I swear I heard it. Jonathan didn't answer. Instead, he crossed the room to the wardrobe, pressing his hand against the back panel. There was a faint click. The wood shifted, revealing a narrow passageway carved into the wall. My breath caught. What is that? He glanced at me, his face unreadable. The first truth your family never wanted you to see. The hidden passage smelled of dust and old secrets. Jonathan lit a flashlight he pulled from his coat pocket and handed me another. "Your grandparents built this house with more than just bricks," he murmured as we walked down the narrow passage. "They built it to keep records, evidence, protection." The corridor led to a small chamber, lined with shelves. Boxes stacked neatly, files labeled in my grandfather's precise handwriting. I ran my fingers over one. Williams Corporation, accounts 1989. Another, property holdings, offshore. Another, testimonies. Jonathan pulled a thick folder from a shelf and handed it to me. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside were photographs. Black and white. My family members, younger, smiling at lavish parties, shaking hands with men in suits I didn't recognize. But not all the photos were celebratory. Some were darker. A body on a dock. A blurred figure exchanging cash. And at the bottom of the file, a contract. My mother's signature scrawled in ink. Next to it, Uncle Richard's. Jonathan's voice was low, steady. "Your family wasn't just greedy, Claire. They were criminals. Fraud. Bribery. Cover-ups. Even deaths swept under the rug. Your grandparents tried to stop it. When I sided with them, I was framed and thrown out." My knees weakened. The flashlight trembled in my hands. "And they left it all, to me?" He nodded once. "Because you're the only one untouched by their corruption. You're the only one who can finish what they started." I stared at the files, my heart pounding. My inheritance wasn't just wealth. It was evidence. Proof. Power. And suddenly, I understood why my family wanted me gone. Not just for the money, but because I held the truth that could destroy them. The files shook in my hands, my heart racing as I tried to process what Jonathan had just revealed. Fraud. Bribery. Deaths covered up. This wasn't just family greed, this was rot that went all the way down. Jonathan set his flashlight on the table, his expression calm but tight, as if he had seen this moment coming for years. "They'll come for these files, Claire. They know the house holds their sins. That's why your grandparents left it all to you, because the law couldn't touch them without this." I hugged the folder to my chest. My grandparents hadn't just trusted me with their estate. They had trusted me with justice. But before I could speak, the sound of glass shattering echoed through the mansion. I froze. What was that? Jonathan's eyes snapped upward, his jaw tightening. "They're here." The sound of boots crunching against broken glass carried through the walls. Then voices, low, sharp, angry. "They came through the side window," Jonathan muttered, moving swiftly toward the passage entrance. He turned to me. "Stay here. Don't move." But my voice shook as I whispered, "What if they find me?" He paused, his grey eyes locking on mine. "Then scream. I'll find them." And with that, he disappeared into the shadows. I sat frozen in the secret chamber, clutching the folder so tightly the edges cut into my palms. The sound of footsteps echoed through the house above, quick, frantic, searching. Then came the voice I knew too well. My mother's. "Find her. Now. Before he does." My chest tightened. They weren't just here for the files. They were here for me. The air in the chamber grew stifling. I couldn't sit still. My flashlight beam shook across the shelves, illuminating rows of files that could bring down my entire bloodline. Then I heard it, the creak of floorboards above. Slow. Deliberate. Moving toward the hidden passage. My stomach dropped. They know about it. The panel door scraped open. Light spilled in. And there she was. My mother. Her silhouette filled the doorway, her expression twisted with fury and desperation. Claire. I stumbled back, my breath catching. How did you? Of course I know about this room, she snapped, stepping inside. Do you think you're the first to find it? Your grandparents thought they were clever, hiding their little files. But they forgot one thing, she jabbed a finger at me. Family always knows where the bodies are buried. Her eyes dropped to the folder in my hands. Give it to me. I shook my head, my voice trembling but firm. No. Her lips curled. You think Jonathan's protecting you? He's a liar. A con. He used to sit in this room and plot against us with your grandparents. They cut him off for a reason, Claire. Don't let him poison you. My throat tightened. Doubt twisted inside me. But then I remembered the look of fear on her face when she first saw him. Fear she couldn't hide. Why would they leave everything to me? I demanded. If Jonathan was the problem, why not you? Why not Richard? For the first time, her mask cracked. Her mouth opened, then shut. I saw it then, the truth in her silence. She lunged forward. I screamed. And in that instant, Jonathan appeared in the doorway, his hand gripping my mother's arm like iron before she could reach me. Not another step, Evelyn, he growled. Her face twisted, her eyes burning with venom. You don't belong here, Jonathan. You never did. And if you think you can hide behind Claire, you're a fool. But Jonathan's grip didn't falter. His voice was low, lethal. No, Evelyn. The fool is the one who thinks the truth can stay buried forever. The tension in the chamber was suffocating. My mother struggled in Jonathan's grip, her eyes flicking between me and the files, desperation clawing at her composure. You don't know what you're doing, Claire, she spat. The room seemed to shrink as he advanced, his presence commanding absolute silence. Even Richard, still panting from the scuffle, backed away. They told me you were dead, I whispered, my voice shaking. He gave a low, humorless laugh. They needed me dead. Because I knew too much. His gaze flicked across the family gathered like cornered wolves. You all fed off the estate like parasites. You thought no one was watching. But I was. Every deal. Every stolen dollar. Every betrayal. I documented it all. My mother's face drained of color. You wouldn't. Oh, but I would, he cut her off, his voice cracking like a whip. The files your grandparents left. They were only part of it. I hold the rest. Enough to bury you all. The cousins shifted nervously, their bravado gone. Margaret clutched Richard's arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. Jonathan's expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned with recognition. He knew this man. And then the uncle's piercing gaze locked on me. Claire, child, he said, his tone softening. You can end this tonight. Stand with me. Expose them. And claim the estate the way it was meant to be claimed, untouched by their filth. I swallowed hard, every nerve in my body trembling. And if I refuse? His eyes darkened. Then you'll be no different than them. The family erupted. Don't listen to him. Richard snarled. He's been gone for decades, hiding like a rat. He has no claim here. Claire, please, Margaret begged, her voice shrill. Think of us. We're family. But my mother's voice cut through them all, sharp and deadly. Don't you dare, Claire. Don't you dare side with him. He'll destroy everything. You'll lose everything. My chest tightened as I looked from their desperate faces to the uncle's steady, piercing eyes. Everything in me screamed to run. To escape this house, this curse, this bloodline. But the uncle stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. They will never stop coming for you, he whispered. Not unless you burn it all down. The folder felt heavy in my arms. The key burned in my pocket. The letter's words echoed in my skull. When the wolves come. And in that suffocating silence, I realized the truth. No matter what choice I made, there would be no going back. The mansion seemed to breathe with us, every shadow watching, every wall listening. My uncle's cane struck the floor once, sharp and commanding. Enough noise. This ends tonight. Claire must decide who lives with the estate and who burns with it. The words sliced through the air. Even Jonathan's jaw tightened. Richard snarled, she's not choosing anything. She's a child. This is OURS. The uncle's lips curved into a cruel smile. Then let's give her the choice you're so afraid of. Claire, look each of them in the eye. Decide who carries this legacy, and who gets cut from it forever. My throat closed. The folder pressed like iron against my chest. Margaret sobbed, clutching my arm. Sweetheart, don't listen to him. We'll share everything with you. Just don't destroy us. But my mother, she didn't beg. She didn't cry. She simply stood tall, her eyes locked on me like daggers. You won't do it, she hissed. Because deep down, you're one of us. The words hit harder than any slap. And then, like a blade in the dark, Jonathan's voice cut through. She doesn't have to be. Everyone turned. His grey eyes burned with something dangerous. She can end this whole cursed line with one decision. I'll stand by her. Whatever she chooses. The uncle's gaze sharpened on him, unreadable. My pulse thundered. My palms dripped with sweat. I opened my mouth to speak. And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed us. A scream split the air, high, sharp, panicked. Margaret. Glass shattered. Footsteps thundered. Hands brushed against me in the dark, grabbing, clawing. I spun, clutching the folder to my chest. Jonathan. Claire. His voice echoed somewhere nearby. Stay where you are. But I couldn't. Cold fingers closed around my wrist, Margaret's, or one of the cousins. I ripped free, heart slamming in my chest. Then, out of the black, came a whisper, low, urgent, right against my ear. Run. Upstairs. Now. It was my uncle's voice. And before I could react, a hand shoved me toward the staircase. I stumbled, slamming against the wall, my breath ragged. The letter's words echoed in my skull. Trust them. But who? Jonathan? My uncle? Neither. The lights flickered back on. And what I saw made my stomach drop. Richard lay on the ground, blood pooling beneath his head. His body was still. And Jonathan was standing over him. The room exploded with chaos. You killed him. Margaret shrieked, pointing at Jonathan with trembling hands. Jonathan's chest rose and fell, his jaw tight. I didn't. He came at me in the dark. He slipped. Liar, my mother spat, her voice venom. You've been waiting for this. You're picking us off one by one. Jonathan's eyes flicked to me, steady, unwavering. Claire. You know me. Do you believe them or me? The uncle's cane struck the floor again, silencing everyone. Believe what you want, girl. But blood has been spilled tonight. And it won't be the last unless you decide. My hands trembled around the folder, the paper inside crinkling under my grip. I felt the key burning in my pocket, heavier than ever. The room was breaking apart. Family turning on family. Jonathan's eyes begging me for trust. My uncle's voice demanding judgment. My mother's fury threatening to swallow me whole. And me. I was drowning. Claire, my uncle said, his voice low, dangerous. You either lock this house down, or you let it devour you. The choice loomed like a blade at my throat. And then the front door slammed open. Police sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights flashed against the stained glass windows of the mansion, bathing the room in a stuttering glow. My family froze, their faces pale and twisted in fear. Margaret clutched her pearls. The police. Who called them? No one answered. Jonathan's chest heaved, sweat glistening on his temple. His eyes flicked to me, then to the door, as if calculating a dozen escape routes. My mother's face, however, was calm. Too calm. You didn't call them, she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the chaos. Her gaze landed on my uncle. You did. His lips twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. Maybe. Or maybe your parents planned for this moment long before they died. Did you really think they'd leave their fortune unguarded? The pounding on the door rattled the walls. Open up. Police. I staggered back, clutching the folder tighter, my pulse racing. If the police walked in right now and saw Richard's bloodied body on the floor, if they saw my family snarling like wolves, if they saw me heir to a fortune and holding evidence of decades of corruption, what would they think? My mother hissed, Claire, listen to me. If those files leave this house, you'll go down with us. You'll be dragged through court, smeared in the media, destroyed. Jonathan's voice cut in, firm, unwavering. Not if she hands them over. She can end this. Tonight. The uncle's cane struck once, echoing like thunder. Choose, Claire. Trust the wolves. Trust the dog. Or trust the blood that raised you. The pounding grew louder. Last warning, open the door. And in that split second, every eye turned to me. The choice was mine. I swallowed hard. My hand slipped into my pocket. My fingers closed around the brass key. And I whispered, almost to myself, I choose. The door burst open. The police stormed in like a flood, shouting, guns raised, flashlights slicing through the room. My family recoiled, their screams and protests swallowed by the chaos. Hands where we can see them, an officer barked. I froze, my arms instinctively clutching the folder tighter against my chest. 2 officers rushed to Richard's body. His still breathing, one shouted. Relief, or was it disappointment, rippled through the room. Jonathan raised his hands, his jaw clenched, eyes never leaving mine. My mother's glare burned into me, her lips forming silent words only I understood, don't betray us. The uncle, however, didn't move. He stood like a statue, his cane steady, his expression unreadable. An officer spotted me. You. Step forward, slowly. My legs trembled as I obeyed, the folder still pressed against me like a lifeline. What's in your hands? The officer demanded. Every eye drilled into me. The weight of my grandparents' legacy. The weight of a family's sins. The weight of a secret key burning in my pocket. I opened my mouth. But before I could speak, the uncle's voice thundered across the room. It's evidence. Of everything. The room erupted. Liar, my mother screamed, lunging forward before 2 officers grabbed her arms. He's a fraud. Don't listen to him. Margaret sobbed hysterically. The cousins shouted over each other. Jonathan stood silent, his eyes locked on me. But the uncle, he smiled. Cold. Calculated. You think your parents didn't plan this, Evelyn? He sneered at my mother. You think they didn't know you'd devour the estate like vultures? That's why they left it to Claire. She is the weapon. And now the blade comes down. The officer holding me glanced at the folder. Evidence of what? My throat closed. I could feel the eyes of everyone, family, Jonathan, the uncle, the police, burning into me, waiting. This was it. The moment. I took a shaky breath. Fraud. Money laundering. Bribery. Even deaths, covered up. Gasps rippled. Margaret collapsed to her knees. My mother's face twisted with unmasked hatred. The officer stiffened. And you're saying your family is responsible? Yes, I whispered. All of them. The words felt like fire leaving my tongue. And as soon as they left, I knew there was no turning back. But then the uncle stepped closer, his smile widening. And what she hasn't told you, he said, is that it wasn't just them. He turned to me. It was your grandparents too. The words cracked through the air like thunder. My stomach lurched. No, you're lying. The uncle's eyes glinted, sharp and merciless. Am I? You think your grandparents built their fortune clean? That they were saints? Child, the only difference between them and the rest of your family, he pointed his cane at Margaret, Richard, my mother, is that they were smarter about hiding it. My mother's face broke into a twisted grin. See, Claire? You've been worshipping ghosts. They were no better than us. Shut your mouth, Evelyn, the uncle snapped, his voice cutting through her like a blade. But doubt gnawed at me. The folder in my hands suddenly felt like poison. My grandparents' letter echoed in my head. We left this for when the wolves come. Had they lied? Were they the wolves all along? Jonathan's voice broke the silence. Don't listen to him, Claire. His tone was steady, but his eyes were stormy, conflicted. Your grandparents weren't perfect, but they tried to fix what went wrong. That's why they chose you. To clean the rot. The uncle turned on him, his cane slamming into the floor. And who are you to speak, boy? A stray lawyer they kept on a leash. Jonathan didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his voice low. I wasn't just their lawyer. I was their witness. I know what they built, and why they hid you away. The room froze. My breath caught. What are you saying? Jonathan's grey eyes locked onto mine. Claire, your grandparents didn't trust him. They feared him. That's why they faked his death. The uncle's face darkened, his mask cracking for the first time. And in that instant, I knew one of them was lying. But which one? The police officers shifted uneasily, caught between family venom and revelations they couldn't yet piece together. Claire, the lead officer said, his voice firm, if you have evidence, hand it over. Now. Every gaze drilled into me. My hands shook. And then Richard groaned, blooded but alive, lifting his head from the floor. His words slurred, weak but venomous. She doesn't get to decide. None of you do. The room fell silent. Because in his trembling hand was a gun. Screams tore through the mansion. Officers drew their weapons, shouting commands. Margaret shrieked, throwing herself against the wall. My mother's eyes gleamed with something terrifying, hope. Drop it, an officer yelled. But Richard's arm shook violently, his eyes bloodshot, his lips curling. This estate is mine. His finger twitched on the trigger. Time slowed. My chest heaved. The folder slipped in my sweaty grip. And then, bang! The gun went off. The sound was deafening, rattling the very walls. I stumbled back, waiting for pain, for blood. But when I opened my eyes, it wasn't me. It was the uncle. His suit bloomed red at the shoulder, the cane clattering to the floor. Jonathan lunged, knocking the gun from Richard's grip. Officers swarmed, dragging him down as he screamed curses. Margaret collapsed, sobbing. My mother stood frozen, her lips trembling, her eyes locked on her brother, bleeding, staggering, still glaring at me through the pain. "You should have chosen me," he rasped, his voice venom even as blood dripped from his arm. The officers pinned him, but his eyes never left mine. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. Shot, wounded, cornered, he still didn't look beaten. He looked like a man who had already won. Chaos swirled. Officers cuffed Richard. Margaret screamed for mercy. My mother was dragged toward the door, her voice slicing through the madness. "Claire, don't trust them. Don't trust any of them." Jonathan caught my arm, his grip steady but urgent. "Claire, we need to go. Now." "Go where?" I stammered, still trembling. "To the only place that matters." His grey eyes bore into mine. "The lock your grandparents left. The key in your pocket. It's time." The brass key felt like fire against my thigh. The uncle groaned as paramedics tried to lift him, but his voice cut through the air, sharp and vicious despite his wound. "Open it, girl. Open it, and see the truth they kept even from me." Every word was a dagger. The police shouted orders. The family wailed. The uncle's blood stained the floor. And I held the key that could end it all. My pulse thundered. My knees weakened. But with Jonathan pulling me forward, I knew. We were about to unlock the one secret my grandparents had buried deepest of all. The storm outside rattled the mansion windows like fists pounding to be let in. Sirens still wailed faintly in the distance, police voices barking commands, but inside I only heard one thing. The metallic clink of the brass key sliding against my palm. Jonathan's hand pressed lightly against my back. "Claire, we don't have much time. Before they regroup." My eyes flicked toward the uncle, his shoulder wrapped in blooded gauze as paramedics worked frantically. Even half-conscious, his lips twisted into a knowing smirk. He whispered something to me across the chaos. "Be careful what you unlock." My knees buckled. What if he was right? What if this key didn't open salvation, but damnation? Jonathan tightened his grip. "Trust me." But did I? Because as his grey eyes bore into mine, I remembered something, his voice earlier, sharper, almost personal. "Your grandparents didn't trust him. That's why they faked his death." Him. The uncle. But Jonathan had known too much. Too quickly. What if my grandparents hadn't trusted Jonathan either? The key burned hotter in my palm. The police tried to separate the family, but my mother's voice still cut through like a blade. "Claire, listen to me. Don't follow him. He's not who you think he is." Jonathan stiffened. His jaw clenched. "We're leaving. Now." And before I could think, before I could breathe, he pulled me through the back hallway of the mansion, toward the cellar doors. The cellar smelled of earth and dust, the kind of damp silence that makes your skin crawl. A single hanging bulb flickered overhead, shadows stretching like claws across the stone walls. At the far end, an iron door. Ancient. Unmoving. Its lock gleamed faintly in the dim light. Jonathan's voice dropped. "This is it." The brass key seemed to pulse in my hand. But behind me, faint footsteps echoed down the cellar stairs. I froze. "Did you hear?" "Yes." Jonathan pulled me close, whispering urgently, "Don't turn. Just open it. Now." My breath hitched. My heart hammered. But I did turn. And there, half hidden in the shadows, was my mother. Her face pale. Her eyes wide. Her finger pressed against her lips. Don't trust him. Jonathan's hand clamped harder on my arm. Claire. Don't listen. Do it. The key trembled between my fingers. Both of them, Jonathan and my mother, stared at me, their faces half in shadow, waiting. One of them was lying. But which one? And once I chose, there would be no going back. Claire, Jonathan hissed, his grip bruising my wrist, your grandparents trusted me with this. Don't let her poison you. My mother stepped from the shadows, her hair wild, her lips trembling. He's lying. Claire, don't you see? He's been using you from the start. Why do you think he was always there waiting? Always one step ahead. The bulb above flickered, plunging us into momentary darkness. My heart slammed in my chest. Jonathan's voice sharpened. She's desperate. She lost everything. Of course she'd say this. But my mother's words cut like glass. Ask him, Claire. Ask him who he really is. Ask him why your grandparents paid him in cash, off the record, for years. Why he vanished for months, and they told everyone he was abroad. Jonathan flinched, so slight, so fast, I almost missed it. The key felt heavier, dragging me down. Claire. My mother's voice cracked. Please. If you open that door with him beside you, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. The bulb buzzed. Jonathan's grey eyes burned into mine. Don't. Listen. To her. And then, a third voice came from the darkness of the stairwell. I'd listen to her, if I were you. The uncle. Wounded, blood seeping through his shirt, but somehow standing tall, his cane clutched like a weapon. My scream lodged in my throat. Jonathan cursed under his breath. He should be unconscious. The uncle smirked, his teeth red with blood. It takes more than a bullet from that pathetic nephew to end me. His gaze cut straight to me. Claire, don't open that door. Not yet. If you do, you'll be sealing your fate. My legs wobbled. The cellar felt smaller, the air tighter. 3 voices. 3 truths. 3 lies. And I stood in the middle, holding the one key that could damn or save us all. The uncle leaned heavy on his cane, but his voice was steady, almost ritualistic. Your grandparents built this estate on a pact. A blood oath. Every heir was supposed to know, but they broke tradition. They left you in the dark. My head spun. What are you talking about? Jonathan snapped. Don't listen to him, he'll twist everything. But the uncle ignored him. His eyes gleamed. That door doesn't just hold money. It holds proof. Proof of what your grandparents did to keep their fortune safe. I swallowed hard. And what did they do? The uncle smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't cruel, it was haunting. They sacrificed one of their own. The cellar went dead silent. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Jonathan went pale. I could barely speak. Sacrificed? Who? The uncle's gaze locked onto me. The answer lies beyond that door. But once you see it, you'll wish you never had. And as the bulb flickered again, I saw it, blood dripping from his cane, pooling on the cellar floor. He wasn't just wounded. He was bleeding out. And yet he smiled. Because he knew I was about to open the one door no heir should ever touch. The key's teeth scraped against the iron lock. My hands trembled so hard I thought I'd drop it. Jonathan's voice thundered in my ear. Turn it, Claire. Now. My mother's scream cracked through the cellar. Don't. And the uncle, bleeding, smiling, his voice dripping with venom, murmured, Do it, child. But don't blame me when the dead come calling. I froze. The lock pulsed under my fingertips, as though alive. My chest heaved, my throat dry. I had never been more aware that once I turned this key, nothing would ever be the same. And then, bang! The cellar door above slammed shut. We all whipped around. Footsteps thundered above us, fast, chaotic. Shouts. One of the officers' voices boomed through the ceiling. Everyone stay where you are. The house is on lockdown. Jonathan's face drained of color. No, not now. My mother grabbed my arm. Claire, listen to me, we have to get out. That door isn't salvation. It's a tomb. The uncle laughed, deep and broken. She's not wrong. I spun on Jonathan. Tell me the truth. What's behind this door? His grey eyes burned into mine. For the first time, his mask slipped. His voice dropped low, ragged. Your grandparents left behind more than money, Claire. They left evidence. Of everything they did to rise to power. If that comes out, the whole family goes down. Every single one. My pulse roared in my ears. My mother whispered, trembling, and you too, Claire. Don't you see? That's why they made you heir. To take the fall when it all unravels. My breath caught. The key nearly fell from my grip. And the bulb above us popped, plunging the cellar into near darkness. The sound of footsteps descended the cellar stairs again. Slow. Heavy. Not police. Someone else. A shadow stretched across the stone floor. And then Margaret stepped into the light. My aunt. Her hands bloody, her eyes wild. She held something in her fist. A second brass key. You think you're the only one, Claire, she hissed, her voice shaking with madness. They gave me one too. But they told me to wait. To wait until you failed. My chest constricted. You're lying. Her grin was sharp, feral. Am I? Why do you think I wanted you gone? Why do you think Richard snapped tonight? They told us you'd inherit. But they told me when you broke, when you fell, I'd be next. Jonathan snarled. She's bluffing. The uncle chuckled darkly. No, she isn't. Margaret lifted the twin key, its surface identical, gleaming in the faint light. And then she lunged for the lock. Chaos erupted. Jonathan slammed into Margaret, the keys clattering to the floor. My mother screamed. The uncle staggered forward, blood dripping from his hand as he tried to snatch one. I dove, palms scraping stone, fingers closing around my key. Margaret clawed at me, shrieking. Jonathan wrenched her back, but her nails raked my arm. I shoved the brass teeth into the lock. One turn. Two. The iron door groaned, ancient bolt sliding. The uncle's voice cut through the madness, low and commanding. Don't open that door. But it was too late. The lock clicked. The door swung open with a shuddering creak. And the smell hit us first. Rot. Old, sealed air. And something else, copper, metallic. Blood. We all froze. Inside, in the flickering light, rows of boxes stretched deep into the hidden chamber. Each stamped with the family crest. And in the center, a chair. A skeleton lashed to it, hands bound, the skull tilted in eternal scream. The air choked in my throat. Jonathan whispered, hoarse, "Oh God. They really did it." The room was silent except for the buzzing bulb and our own ragged breathing. My mother collapsed to her knees, sobbing. It's true. They sacrificed him. I staggered closer, my stomach lurching. A rusted nameplate was bolted to the chair's back. I wiped away dust with trembling fingers. My blood froze. It was my uncle's name. The same man standing beside me. Alive. Bleeding. Smiling. I spun to him, horror tearing through me. How can this? His lips curved in a chilling smile. I told you, Claire. They faked my death. They bound me here, left me for dead, then buried me alive in paper and lies. But I survived. And I took what they promised me. Jonathan's face was pale. No. That's impossible. The uncle stepped forward, his cane clattering against the floor. Impossible? Or inevitable? He leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. You think you're heir to their fortune? No. You're heir to their sins. The chamber swallowed us in its darkness. And I realized. The inheritance wasn't wealth. It was a curse. The chamber walls seemed to close in, lined with boxes stacked like tombs. The skeleton sat bound, a grotesque monument to everything my family had hidden. Jonathan whispered, his voice cracked. Claire, we need to leave. Now. Before. The uncle's cane slammed against the floor. No one leaves until she accepts it. His eyes burned into mine, feverish, wild. You've inherited not just their fortune, but their curse. Every heir must face the blood oath. Every generation pays. My pulse raced. I won't. I refuse. He smiled, terrible and calm. Refusal is a choice. But it comes with consequences. He raised a trembling hand, revealing a dagger, old and rusted, its blade engraved with the family crest. Jonathan cursed, stepping in front of me. My mother screamed. Margaret whimpered in the corner. The uncle's voice boomed in the chamber. The blood must be spilled. And he charged. The dagger flashed. Jonathan shoved me aside, grappling with the uncle. Their bodies slammed against the boxes, sending papers and ledgers spilling across the stone floor. My mother crawled toward me, clutching my arm. Claire, don't you see? This is what they wanted you to be, the sacrifice. No. Jonathan roared, holding the uncle back. She's not theirs to destroy. The uncle's laughter filled the chamber, sick and triumphant. You think you can fight the oath? It already chose her. The dagger nicked Jonathan's arm. Blood splattered across the dusty floor. The uncle's voice dropped to a hiss. Her blood. Or yours. Either way, the curse feeds. I stumbled backward, my heel striking something metallic, a lantern, old but still filled with oil. My fingers trembled around it. And a thought, dark and desperate, took root. Maybe the only way to end this was to burn it all. I hurled the lantern against the stone floor. It shattered, fire igniting across the spilled oil. Flames licked the boxes, devouring paper, spreading fast. The chamber filled with choking smoke. No, the uncle roared, his face lit hellish orange. You don't understand. Those records, those secrets, without them, you'll never know the whole truth. Maybe I don't want to, I screamed. Jonathan dragged me toward the door, coughing violently. My mother clung to my arm, Margaret scrambling behind us. The uncle staggered, dagger still in hand, silhouetted in fire. Claire, this isn't the end. You are bound to me. Bound to us all. The chamber collapsed in fire and smoke as we burst through the iron door. Behind us, his laughter echoed low, guttural, unbroken until the flames drowned it out. The mansion above was chaos, officers shouting, smoke alarms shrieking, flames beginning to crawl up through the cellar. I gasped for air, my chest heaving. Jonathan's arm wrapped around me, steadying me. My mother sobbed into my shoulder. Margaret collapsed on the stairs, coughing, muttering, "It's over. It's all over." But deep inside, I knew it wasn't. Because even as the house burned, even as the sirens wailed closer, I could still hear his words in my head. "You are bound to me. Bound to us all." The inheritance wasn't just money. It wasn't just secrets. It was a legacy that had marked me body and soul. And somewhere in the flames below, my uncle's laughter refused to die. Days later, I sat in a sterile law office, my hands trembling around a soot-stained envelope pulled from the wreckage. Jonathan stood beside me, silent, his arm still bandaged. My mother sat across, pale, hollow. The lawyer slid the envelope closer. "It was addressed to you, Claire. Your grandparents' final letter." I tore it open, heart hammering. "To our granddaughter. If you are reading this, then the oath has reached you. We could not escape it. We only delayed it. But you, Claire, you have the chance to end it. Burn it all, and you will be free. But beware, the blood that was spared will always seek you. Until the last thread of this family is cut." My hands shook. Tears blurred my vision. Jonathan touched my shoulder. "Claire, what will you do?" I stared at the letter, the edges singed by fire. And I whispered the only truth I had left. "This isn't over.